You gotta just chill out, man.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schiffel coming at you. It's Tuesday night. We're back to our normal night and everything, even though we were last week as well, but it just feels like it's been an awful lot.
Normal night, normal time.
Normal time, because we weren't at the normal time last week. Where else would you rather be as a Steelers fan? Honestly, there's probably lots of places you'd rather be right now. But with me, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother, Rich, who was, I don't know if you were frostbitten or not, but you were snake bitten from being there Saturday night. Rich, how's it going?
I'm in some ways, I guess I will say it's good that I don't have to try to take that deep breath tonight. I'm kind of congested. So,
it's not good. I mean, you haven't got to breathe in a month.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's why I'm so congested, because I've got to take.
You're congested. Yeah. You can't really take a deep breath.
Keep having to breathe in the stink of these Steeler games.
Because you know what? I got to thinking about that one. I'm like, man, it's been a long time since Rich has been able to breathe it in. I said, but you want to know what? The last time you got to breathe it in was the last time the Steelers played a game when God intended NFL football to be played.
Yes. We can go into that some more. But
I know. But honestly, you knew the Steelers were probably going to be on Saturday, regardless of their opponent, because for some reason the NFL has every single time the Houston Texans have ever made the playoffs, they have played in Wild Card Weekend at 4:30 on Saturday. Every time. It was. I saw that put out there on social media. I thought that was hilarious. Unless it was wrong. I mean, it could be wrong. It's not like everything that goes on social media is right. But between the Texans being that, and because both, or if they played Baltimore like they do, both of them played on Saturday, then you had a feeling that was coming. It's interesting. We've already got some people coming into the live chat. Kathy's anxious to hear if Dave's take on Tomlin has mellowed. We'll get to some of that stuff.
We will get to some of that stuff.
Jeff asked me a direct question, and I had to give a direct answer. So, you know Correct. What? As we get there, I'll probably ask you the same question. But we were first of all, I'm watching the game at home. I'm covering your article. I'm covering Bad's podcast. I've got a lot of work to do when the game's going on, and I'm just frustrated. It was frustrating. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this past Saturday's game and things that we saw, because remember, the Steelers had a legendary, horrible stretch of games they had to play with the 3 games in 11 days, and I've laid it out before. People are like, well, they weren't the only team that had to do it. You're right. 4 teams had to do it. But none of them had to play the opponents that the Steelers had to. I mean, my goodness.
The Steelers had the most difficult strength of schedule there.
Yes.
By far.
I mean, I can't remember if it was this show or another show that I said, you want to compare them to the Ravens? The people are like, oh, well, the Ravens played 3 games in 11 days. Yeah. But the Ravens, the best team they played in that stretch was the Steelers. At home. The easiest team the Steelers had was the Ravens on the road. When you look at their final records for the season, Philadelphia had a better record than the Ravens, and so did Kansas City. So that was a brutal stretch. And I get it. And like I said, from the very beginning of the season, I predicted them to lose all 3 of those games just because of the way the schedule set up. But I was waiting for the bounce back in the final week of the season after the extended rest.
But I wasn't even just waiting for the bounce back. I may have been expecting 3 losses, but I was expecting different football.
Yes. Well, and you know what? We got a little bit of different football. But we also got some different football that we didn't expect to get that was even worse.
Yes.
Okay? because to me, like my X factor going into the game, Jeff and I do the X factor article. He always takes offense, so I do defense. And I said the only reason I'm saying this for defense, it's true for both sides of the ball, but I focus on defense, is I'm like, stop sucking in the fourth quarter. I had laid out the final 20 minutes and everything else with stuff. But I mean, the Steelers in the fourth quarter, their numbers were awful. I mean, over the last 6 games, not counting this past game, but the previous 6 games, they had been outscored 65-0. No, it wasn't to nothing. No. The previous 3 games, they had been outscored 37-0. They had given up 65 points in the previous 6 games. That was over 11 points a game. Now, they did better this past game in the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, for the offense, that's the only time they showed up at all, was the problem. And the defense, who I was frustrated, so many times I get this with the defense. You get frustrated with them throughout the game, thinking they're not doing a very good job because they're giving up yards. But when you stop at the end of the game and go back and look at it, to hold the number 1 passing offense in the NFL to 19 points and no touchdowns after the first drive,
that's
actually
pretty good.
Was an improvement.
That's not bad.
I mean, I talked about that. The Bengals over. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it had been since week 8. Since week 8, when the Bengals lost to the Eagles. Some of these games were wins. Some of these games were losses. Maybe it wasn't since. I'm trying to find exactly what it was where I put it. They were averaging over 32 points a game. They were averaging over 32 points a game. I mean, because that was going back to the all the way to the Eagles game. Here were their point totals from week 9 on: 41, 34, 27, bye, 38, 27, 37, 24, 30, and then the Steelers 19. So they'd held them to less points than anyone had since the Eagles, who was the number 1 defense in the NFL, or at least they were when the Steelers played them. They might have fallen out of there. I haven't checked where they fell since. I mean, I thought the defense did enough to win the game, but man, did they get no help.
None. So, all right, I'm going to bring something up because somebody asked.
Okay.
Daniel Red said, so Rich watched receivers running open. Bad saw no one open. Was it just different angles?
No, wait.
Hold on.
No.
Hey, I brought it up. I get to respond.
But I was going to not bring this comment up, but bring this subject up. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I get to respond. Okay. It was both. Okay. It was both. I also saw plays where 0 people were open. But the frustrating part then was when you saw guys wide open, Russ couldn't find them.
Yeah. I sent this message to Brian Anthony Davis this evening. It was at 6:23 this evening. Pittsburgh Standard Time. Yeah. Said, listening to Here We Go. I found it interesting that you said receivers weren't open, but the report from my brother was the receivers were running wide open. Now I don't know who to believe. And Brian says this back to me. This is what Bat said. I would believe your brother. I don't trust my own judgment anymore. That's what he said to me. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
No, there were plays where, and you could bring it up, and you would see 3 to 4 receivers in the pattern. They would all be blanketed, right? Yeah. And so those were not the plays where I would be frustrated with Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, did we see how wide open Pat Freiermuth was on that touchdown pass?
He was wide open.
Wide open, okay? There were multiple other times receivers were running that open, and Russ couldn't find them.
All right, so I have to say this. I've got to find his Twitter handle. Sorry, X, whatever you want to call it, okay? You all should know him and love him if you listen to our audio podcasts. Coach KT Smith. If you're on the website, great articles, everything else. Here's the thing when it comes to Coach Smith. He did his Twitter handle is KT Smith FFSN. I wanted to tell you exactly what it is. So anyone listening, KT Smith FFSN. All right.
He would tell you that Cliff Harris is still a punk.
Yes, he would. But he did a breakdown earlier in the week. And I'm trying to find it because it's been he's done another one since. So he's done plenty of stuff since. And because he does more than just Steelers stuff. So you got to realize that. But he had one that it was a breakdown. It was from two days ago. Check out my breakdown of Russell Wilson's struggles against the Bengals. I'm pretty sure he put this in his article that he had, but at SteelCareerNetwork.com. But he showed how on his left side, he had, I think, Calvin Austin and George Pickens. They were running a route combination, and it was easy to see that it was cover 3. They were running a route combination that was a cover 2 beater on the left side. On the right side, you had Pat Freiermuth and somebody else. Pat Freiermuth runs up there to run, like a skinny post or something like that, whatever they want to call it. Pat Freiermuth was open. But Russell Wilson was stared down the cover 2 beater going against cover 3. Where if you identify this as the cover 3, as Coach Smith was breaking it down, then guess what's going to probably be the better combination? The stuff that's on his right side. And yet Wilson looked left the whole time. I think he ended up taking a sack.
Well, one of my favorites was, and this is where the game totally turned for George Pickens. Okay, now George Pickens, is a little bit in my doghouse right now because of how he played, especially down the stretch in that game. Yeah. Okay, but he was put there. Mm-hmm. Okay, he didn't start the game in the doghouse. He got put in the doghouse. You saw everything in George Pickens' demeanor turn on a play. I want to say it was second quarter. Russ flushes out to the left, which was George Pickens' side. George Pickens is wide open 15 to 18 yards down the field on the sideline, in between the zone.
Yeah.
In between the zone. Russ looks at him and throws the ball 15 yards out of bounds. Doesn't even try to throw it to George.
Yeah.
And you could see it in George's body language as soon as the play happened, that he was like, if he can't see me that wide open, then he's not going to see me.
Yeah. So, well, the problem was it was more than 5 yards past the line of scrimmage and not more than 20 yards past the line of scrimmage. That's the problem. Because you're not getting Russell Wilson throwing the ball there. And I say 5, it's probably closer to 10. I'm frustrated. I feel like it's got to be a dump off or a home run ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where's the intermediate?
Where's the intermediate
ball?
Passing?
And that play in particular was there. I mean, George Pickens wide open.
Yeah.
And I believe it was on a third down.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing. I mean, as bad as the offense played, if Russell Wilson decides rather than say, oh, I better throw it to the sideline so he can get out of bounds, and just actually throws it where George Pickens is running wide open behind everybody on the next to last offensive play of the game, I'd say the Steelers would have scored a touchdown. Now, I think they would have scored a touchdown. The smart move would have been, even though the Steelers didn't have any more timeouts and there was 20 seconds left, if George Pickens would have gone out of bounds at the 3-yard line.
It wouldn't have been the 3, but actually George Pickens could have caught that ball, gotten out of bounds somewhere around the 15-yard line.
Yeah.
With plenty of time left. Or like you said, he could have made the catch. The only guy left to make a play on him was the safety coming over. All George had to do was go up the sidelines, and when the safety gets ready to hit him, just go ahead and step out of bounds. Boom, game over.
Yeah.
Steelers would win. Russ threw the ball to a spot, not the man.
Not the man.
And
guess what? I think the defender was defending the spot.
yes, the
Pickens got open.
corner. The
Yeah.
corner was absolutely defending that spot. Pickens recognized that and said, "I'm just going to drift a little deep." Oh, Dave,
He was
I mean,
so wide open.
we started to go nuts in the stand because of how wide open he was, and when we saw
Mm-hmm.
the ball was going to go that way, everybody started to go nuts. And then the throw went, and we were all like, "WTF? What's going on, Russell Wilson?"
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like we brought you in here as a veteran, Super Bowl winning, great quarterback to complete that throw,
Yeah.
and it didn't happen. Now,
Well,
let me tell you this, and this was obvious, and what's funny is I told you going to the game with me. I took one of my good childhood friends growing up, and we were talking about this. And it was just that right now, it looks like the Steelers, the fans, everybody, nobody, when the Steelers got that ball back inside of the 2 minutes, there was little hope. Like people's people's
all you needed was Boswell.
no, yeah, but people's confidence was small. Boswell wasn't the problem. The question was, could Russ get us far enough down the field to kick the field goal?
Well,
okay. When Ben Roethlisberger was the quarterback of the Steelers, that's where he made his living.
Yeah.
Was that situation. Okay. Get it close enough to give a chance at the field goal. Even if the field goal would have been 57 yards, he'd at least gotten you the chance at it.
Yep.
More times than not. I don't have that kind of faith in Russell Wilson to be able to do that.
Now, did I 6 weeks ago? I did. But I don't now. And honestly, before it was Russell Wilson, right now it's a combination of things.
It is.
Getting back to the title of the show, will the Steelers have a play-to-win mentality Saturday? And it's funny because Wes says play-to-win mentality. Nope, haven't had that mentality for the last 4 games. I don't agree with that at all. They just weren't good enough to win the previous 3. This last one, they weren't playing to win. Their offensive strategy was 2023 all over again. Yeah, play to win the game. But their offensive strategy was 2023 all over again. Don't turn the ball over. Let your defense keep you in it, and hopefully you can stick around and win it at the end. They weren't playing to win. The offensive philosophy was play not to lose. You were playing not to lose. Now, the 3 games before that, I didn't have that feeling at all. They just weren't good enough. There's a difference between not being good enough and actually having the philosophy of that's what we're doing. And the thing is, Coach Tomlin confirmed it with so much stuff he said in his press conference yesterday. I had an article that ran yesterday afternoon on SteelCurtainNetwork.com. There was still a lot of discussion with it again today. And it was asking, what was the Steelers' offensive philosophy in Week 18? And that was my point. They were playing not to lose. We're going to curl up in a ball and live in our fears and just run the ball. And Coach Tomlin even said in his press conference, well, running the ball, there's a lot less chance of a turnover with a run than there is a pass. My thing is that there's a lot less chance of a turnover on a handoff than there is a toss, but that's not stopping you there.
Yeah.
but sorry, I couldn't help myself there.
And who on the website was that? Was that Coach Smith on the website too? Did the article yes, it was him. Had the breakdown of the efficiency of the run plays and the pass plays, and how inefficient the toss plays were. And yet we still think they're a good idea for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good. Honestly, what I noticed from Saturday night more than anything with the running, they were so much more effective running the ball straight ahead up the middle. Yet they were still trying to run to the outside. I'm like, if you're going just to running the ball, Oh, well, you want to run the ball so much you have to vary your runs. Well, guess what? Stop running so many that are the ones that don't work. You know? I'm sorry, this is still the high school freshman coach in me that's like, hey, if you're only going to run 6 running plays, and
Run
you've
your
only
best
got 2
6.
of them that work,
Yeah.
just run those 2. Just keep doing it. But honestly, the Steelers' offense is not good enough to be like, we're going to do what we want to do, and it's up to you to stop us. No, and that's why Coach Tomlin was actually asked about it in the press conference. They're like, you're trying to be a running team. You have some of the most rushing attempts in the NFL, but you're towards the bottom in yards per rush. Why do you keep trying to run the ball? And part of his answer was, turn it over. It's a lot, that it's less likely to turn the ball, which just went to show me they went with the play it safe mentality in this game. Oh, that's last time they had a pick 6 against the Bengals, so you better not do that again, which scares me to death because the same thing happened to the Ravens last time they played them. Oh, we had a pick 6. We better curl up and not ever throw the ball because they might possibly do that again. You know what? It doesn't matter if they get a pick 6 if you don't score any points. You're still going to lose 7-0. You got to do something to try to score points, and you're not a very good running team. But you're insisting on trying to do it. I mean, honestly, the Steelers just aren't a great offense. They're not. I've talked about it before. They don't have the players to be that great of an offense. They really don't. So I wish that the Steelers for this playoff game, more than anything, would do exactly what I said when the Steelers played the Bengals. I'm pretty sure it was the Bengals the second time. Who was the first game that Rudolph started against last year? Was it the Bengals?
I
think it was. Because then it was the Seahawks, which was probably his best game. And then it was the Ravens to finish the season, who were resting players, and then it was playoffs. So when Rudolph went to start the game, and I just said, you know what? I've quoted this so many times. Go for it. Go for it. You might not ever get another chance to the NFL. Don't just sit back and be conservative and make sure you don't turn the ball over. If you think you have a chance to complete a pass, go for it. I want a go for it attitude. Now, could the Steelers get crushed because their go for it attitude isn't good enough? Absolutely. But I would much rather them go for it than have to keep watching the brand of football we've been forced to watch for basically the last 5 seasons. That we hadn't been watching, and it reared its ugly head in week 18. I mean, we saw it more. We kind of saw a little bit more the first 6 weeks. I'm sorry. The Steelers offense was not very much in attack mode with Justin Fields. It was play conservative. Don't turn it over, Justin. Keep us in the game with our defense. Didn't seem. That's why I liked when Russell Wilson first came in. Sorry if I'm going off a little bit on this. When Russell Wilson first came in and it looked like it was such a brilliant move, I said, maybe it takes a Super Bowl winning quarterback for the coaches to trust them to actually make plays. Well, it looks like they lost their trust in Russ based on what their philosophy was on Saturday. So what bothers me was not, yes, it was poor execution. Yes, Russell Wilson looked awful, in my opinion, yet he's still got a really good PFF grade, which surprised me. Okay. But the philosophy was super safe. The philosophy assumed he was going to be
run
terrible.
the ball on every first down.
Go
under center.
Yeah.
And run the football.
Yeah.
Okay. And not even just go under center and then run the football. It was if you'd have been there and watched, it was go under center with you knew you watched the personnel groupings go on the field. You watched Russ line up under center and you knew it was a run. They kept because first down, George Pickens off the field. They're going to run it.
Yeah. And see, you're exactly right. And that's why I was frustrated. When first down came, you see the personnel, you see the formation, and you're like, it's a run. I knew exactly what they were doing the very first play of the second half as soon as they lined up. I'm like, they're going to run that toss to the left.
Everybody knew
and
it.
You know who else knew it?
Everybody booed
the Bengals. That's why they threw it for a 4-yard loss.
I know.
It had been a very long time since I felt like, oh, we know exactly what the Steelers are running. I'm like, why? But why did they go back to that? And it seems like because Coach Tomlin kept saying it about the turnovers. The problem, we're losing the turnover battle. We're losing the turnover battle. You know what your problem is, Coach? If you want to win a turnover battle, get more takeaways. Don't stop playing offense. Don't stop playing offense just to not turn it over.
What good?
Make sure you get more takeaways.
What good does winning the turnover battle do? The last 2 times the Steelers have won the turnover battle, they've lost the football game.
Yeah.
So the winning the turnover battle
3
does not matter.
Yeah.
In the win-loss column.
Yeah.
It might play a role, but it doesn't matter. When you win that turnover battle, but still don't win the game, what good was it?
Yeah, you're right. I thought it was 3, but I was wrong. It is the last 2 times. The last 2 times they've won the turnover battle, they have lost. They lost to the Bengals when they won it by 1. They lost to the Eagles when they won it by 1. Against the Ravens, they lost it by 1. And against the Chiefs, they lost it by 2. But even winning it against the Eagles, they still lost the game. And even winning against the Bengals, they still lost the game. They didn't win the turnover battle. Wait, there's one of these where they didn't win the turnover battle and yet still won the game. Oh, the Commanders. They lost the turnover battle and won the game. So,
which game
is it
was
an
it?
important stat? It is.
Was it Detroit a few weeks ago?
Offense.
Was it Detroit a few weeks ago that Goff threw like 5 interceptions and they still won or something like that? Somebody threw 5 interceptions in a game.
The Eagles versus Commanders. Hold on, I'll have it in just a second.
Yeah, that's you're right. That is what it was.
No, Jaden Daniels threw 5 interceptions and they won that game.
Correct.
That was the game that Hurts got hurt. But no joke. The Commanders turned it over 5 times, where the Eagles turned it over twice. They were -3 in the turnovers and +3 in the points. Now, that's the exception, not the rule. I get that.
But the Commanders did not stop playing their style of football.
Yes.
They did not stop trying to put points on the board.
Yeah.
Because they turned the ball over a couple times. It was still, they knew their chance to win was to turn Jaden Daniels loose.
Yes.
And it worked out.
Yeah. So, just so you know, just because we're being critical and we don't like the philosophy, I tried to say this to start the post-game shows. Like, we're not going to come on here upset about this game and saying everyone needs to be fired and everyone needs to be benched. It's not realistic. But we need to be able to talk critically about the team. Okay? Correct. I'm not saying that. And then I said later on in the thing, because they want to know if I soured on Tomlin, I'll ask you this question. Because Jeff asked me this question. He's like, do you think that Coach Tomlin can get the Steelers there again to the Super Bowl? Not even this year. And I had to say, based on the data and the recent data, I mean, going back where they haven't won a playoff game since the 2016 season, I have to say no. Because he hasn't done anything to show us that they can be in the mix to be in the playoffs a lot. But based on that. But I also said he's not going anywhere unless he chooses to. And people are like, well, I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying they're not. We might as well, kind of like, who is it? Burge, I think that was in there, or somebody at one point. I had to say, can you just give it a rest talking about Mike Munchak in October? The Steelers aren't bringing Mike Munchak in October. He's already a consultant with like the Rams or somebody. You can talk about, you want to talk about Mike Munchak? You know, we're going to talk about that the week after the Steelers are done playing. I'd love to talk about that a ton then because it would make a lot of sense. Didn't make any sense. It wasn't going to help him in October. You want to talk about fixing the offensive line, and if your only answer is to wait until you get a new coach to start working with the team in April, that doesn't help you in October. It's not the conversation worth having at that time. So That's going to be a great conversation to have here eventually, because I think the Steelers are, if I remember right, this is the end of Pat Meyer's contract, and it should be. Okay? But these are things we'll talk about more in the offseason because we've still got football to talk about. So in case you can't tell, I'm a little bit fired up still. But and with those kind of things. But I'm so frustrated because when I expected to see the Steelers get more on the right path against the Bengals, I didn't care if they won the game or not. I wanted to see them get on the right path. What's sad is I felt like offensively they ended up on the wrong path, and yet the defense improved well enough to still keep them in the game.
So I heard Jeff ask you that question while we were riding back on the Clipper. I have my own thoughts on it, and here is this. So of course I had to.
So let's get your thoughts before we take our break.
I kind of agree with you. Is that the more recent data doesn't make me very confident in Mike Tomlin being able to get this team back to a Super Bowl. Now, it doesn't mean that my percentages are zero. But they're small. They're probably 12-14% maybe, right? Yeah. Because when's the last time the Steelers played in an AFC Championship game?
That was the last time that started the playoff losing streak.
Correct.
That was in 2016.
The 2016 season.
Yeah, it was in January 2017.
Yes,
but it was the 2016. I always go by the season, not the year it actually took place.
I agree. I do too. But
so it was. They beat the Dolphins at home. I was at that game. That was that cold game. That was when Bud Dupree took off Matt Moore's head. Then they went to Kansas City and won there on all Boz field goals. That sounds familiar, right? Yeah. And then they went to New England and lost by a good bit. So yeah, it's been. I mean, my goodness, you're talking 8 years. In 8 years. Now, I am going to say about something else about that, and we also have a super chat.
Not just that it's been 8 years.
Yeah,
that was like you said. That was also the last year they actually had a win in the playoffs. So it's been 8 years since a playoff win.
Yeah,
and it happened to be that year they made it as far as the AFC Championship.
Yes. So we still got plenty more to talk about. We're going to go ahead and take our break because I have something that I thought was kind of interesting that I'm going to bring up to you. I know it seems like we're kind of ranting and frustrated, but it doesn't mean
all the Steeler fans are out there feeling the same way.
But all we're talking about is backing up. They need to have a play-to-win mentality. And unfortunately, we've seen the Steelers curl up into this type of mentality in the playoffs. That's right.
Playoffs?
Yeah. We've seen them curl up and have this mentality in the playoffs after not having it in the regular season. That's why seeing it the final week of the season is so disheartening, because it tells us that we might just see the same old thing that we've seen in the playoffs for I'm not going back all that time, but at least probably about 4 years. So we're going to take our break. Got plenty of other stuff to talk about. If you're with us here live, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us here in the audio, we'll be right back.
Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax. Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax.
Gee, this is one time that, we always try to say that the music, that's what we need to do. This is one that where Rich, I don't feel like I can relax and not worry. I really don't. But we're here. We're going to continue to talk about this with the Steelers. Now, is it possible that the Steelers come out with a completely different offensive mentality in the playoffs? Yes. And I think it's what they need. I think if they do, if nothing, hopefully I'm looking at this, the coach Tom's like, you know what, we're gonna just run the ball, really focus on not turning it over and everything else. That's what we're gonna do against Cincinnati. The fact that it didn't work, hopefully they're like, all right, we can't go back to that mentality anymore. I'm hoping that's what they see. But based on the words I heard him saying in the press conference, it does not give me much hope that that's going to be the case. So, and of course, in typical fashion, the the Penguins blow a 2-goal lead with less than 10 minutes to go in the game, and now they're in overtime, and the shootout's going on. So I don't even know. I think they might have just lost it already. Yeah, I think they did. But anyway, that's not as important. I'm trying to find something else. Rich, there was a very interesting article that I read on NFL.com, and I took a screenshot of it, and unfortunately it doesn't have the author in it. So I'm really sorry that I'm not giving credit to the exact author, but it was on NFL.com. I'm pretty sure it was yesterday. And what they were doing, and don't worry, I haven't forgot about the super chat. But what they were doing was they were ranking all 14 playoff teams. Guess where the Steelers were ranked?
Oh, at the very bottom, probably.
14th. They were. But I'm like, I want to hear what they had to say. And I'm reading all this and I'm just like, oh my goodness. This is so spot on. And then they said something at the end and I'm like, I'm going to bring this up. Because remember, this is coming from a non-Steeler-centric source. So it says there isn't a team in the league that is inspiring less confidence heading into the postseason than the Steelers. After Saturday's loss to Cincinnati, Pittsburgh has dropped 4 straight games, including 3 to teams that also are heading to the playoffs in Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Kansas City, and a 4th to a squad that nearly snuck in Cincinnati. The most noteworthy takeaway from all those games is the Steelers simply don't have enough offense to compete with the big boys in this league. They can play defense. They can win the special teams battle and survive on timely turnovers. But without those things happening, it's too much of a grind for this group to manufacture points. Does that sound pretty accurate so far?
Sounds pretty accurate so far.
The Steelers have scored 57 combined points in this losing streak. Quarterback Russell Wilson has gone from being a player who made head coach Mike Tomlin look like a genius when Tomlin inserted Wilson into the lineup in place of Justin Fields in Week 7 to one who might be playing his way out of town. This is still sounding pretty good to me, pretty factual. Wilson hasn't thrown for more than 217 yards in his last 4 games, and he's produced some horrible turnovers in the red zone, but not this past week because they didn't want him to do anything like that. The common belief used to be that Pittsburgh's offense would improve once wide receiver George Pickens returned from a hamstring injury that sidelined him for 3 games late in the season. You know what? That's what I was thinking too. Did it sideline him 3 games? Yeah, because he missed the week before the Eagles. That's right. Yes. Okay. So when their last win, which was that the Browns? Yeah, that was the Browns. Okay. The reality is the Steelers haven't gotten any better on that side of the football since he came back. Okay. Everything here sounds spot on. And I think a lot of Steelers fans would agree with it. Then you get the very last 2 sentences of the whole thing where a number of Steelers fans will agree, and there's going to be a whole bunch of them that are like, that just won't see it. Okay? But I'm going to say it, and once again, people are going to give me a hard time because what it is, but I'm just reading what it was here. Okay? The reality is, oh wait, I already said that one. The reality is the Steelers haven't gotten any better on that side of the football since he came back. Then what they say, look, Tomlin did a heck of a job guiding this bunch to a 10-7 record. It's just hard to see a team this flawed being a serious threat to advance beyond the first round. That's where you lose most of Steelers Nation, whether they're right or whether they're wrong. And that is those on the outside looking in. Why did everyone have this team only winning 6 or 7 games this year? Because on offense, their roster isn't any good. And while some people were saying that's a testament to their coach getting them that far, then there's a lot of people, a lot of Steelers fans that are saying, see how the coach is disappointed again. I'm being realistic, and that's why I keep saying the offensive roster is not very good. It's not, because look, that's where the Steelers have really poured their draft picks in recently. What do we know about draft picks? Even in the first 3 rounds, they're pretty much 50-50, right?
Yep.
If you can get your draft picks in your first 3 rounds, if you can get half of them to work out, you're doing pretty good. And when you're relying on a bunch of draft picks, I mean a bunch of draft picks. I mean, look, offensive line, 4 out of the 5 of them right now, I mean, because James Daniels got hurt, draft picks. Dan Moore just happens to be at the end of that cycle. Tight end, 2 out of the 3, draft picks. Wide receivers, draft picks or scrap heap. Quarterback, scrap heap. Honestly.
Yeah.
Running backs, draft pick or undrafted free agent. That's who this offense is. And I've said, because the Steelers have paid to keep their players on defense, they keep having to bring in a cycle of players on offense. Okay? They're not, does it mean that the offense can't get better? No, they're young. They are. They could get better. But if you think every draft pick is going to work out, and that's what you're banking on, you're not going to have a very good offense either. So, and I do think that part of the reason that the Steelers did get to the wins that they did was because of maximizing their defense and the takeaways and things like that. So the thing is, for those people like that are really down on Coach Tomlin, I get it. What he's done and what's going on is not winning playoff games. But at the same time, I also think some people are looking at it with black and gold glasses, thinking that the players that the Steelers have, particularly on offense, are better than what they really are. They really don't have much on offense. Go ahead. I've said a lot.
Okay. So here would be my only thing right now, and this is where it gets frustrating. Okay. Yes. Did the Steelers take advantage and show some good offensive stats when they played some middle of the road to bottom feeder type teams? Yes.
Yeah.
The Steelers handled their business against a lot of those teams that they should have. Now, the frustrating part for me from the coaching staff is that you see a very different philosophy when they're playing those teams versus when they're playing better teams. Why not try some of that stuff that worked against those middle of the road teams that worked against some of the better teams? Why?
I understand
we shrivel
that.
up. You know, we need it. We need a clip. I can't believe we don't have it. We need the "we don't play in our fears" clip, because honestly, we could be right now. I could be poking a lot of fun at that,
but
because that's.
We said it last year. We're like, we don't live in our fears unless it's the postseason. No,
Yeah.
I don't even think it's unless it's the postseason. We've proved this earlier this season.
Yeah.
Where do the Steelers live in their fears? When they're going against high quality opponents.
Yep.
Now, you say, why can't you just go out there and do that? You could say that's bad coaching. And I'm not going to disagree with you. But someone else could also make the argument that that is identifying your shortcomings and know that you really can't compete with those rosters, and you're trying to do something to give yourself a chance, which I could see your point. I don't agree with it. I would not do that, but I also see the point.
But
is knowing that you aren't good enough to play with those teams.
No, you're not good enough to play with those teams is one thing, okay? You should never, when you have things that are working against those middle of the road teams, like, it's two totally different game plans.
Yeah, it is.
So
it's like
basically, when we come up against a good team, we scrap it all.
Okay.
We scrap, and go back to the super ultra conservative stuff. Why can't you play mostly conservative, but sprinkle in a little more?
Yeah.
Take some chances here or there. Honestly, as the coaching staff, that's what you're getting paid for, to figure out when to take the chances. That's where you make your money as a coach.
Yeah. And honestly, who's to say that the Steelers might not have had the same philosophy had they not fallen behind against the Bengals? But they've fallen behind big time every game for the last 4 games. That's your problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's your problem. Now, at least, like I said, at least in this game, they didn't crap the bed in the fourth quarter. They won the fourth quarter 10-3. But if they win the fourth quarter 10-0, they win the game. But oh well, that's a different story. And you can talk about the end of the first half. A lot of people were like how dumb it was to not punt there. I wanted them to go for it. I really did. But you know what I wanted? I wanted them to run the sneak again. Why? Because Russell Wilson, I'm really frustrated with him when he ran that sneak because they didn't stop him. He went that far and fell down and didn't make it far enough. And part of the reason he didn't make it far enough is they said 4.5 yard, and then they lined the ball up a full yard back of the sticks. To me, Freiermuth had that first down. They made a bad call.
Yep.
I still think that call was based on, hey, we want to keep the Bengals in this game here. It's better it gives more drama on Sunday if the Bengals win this game. You know, when that overturned it from above. That should not have been overturned from above. The call, there was not enough evidence for replay assist there on Freiermuth's thing. But that's beside the point. And some people are like, I don't like the play call they ran on fourth down. I don't. My point is, if you're going to run that play, you might as well punt. But if you're going to run a better play, I'd have been okay with it. Okay, and the reason they originally gave it to Jaylen Warren was, did his butt touch the ground, or was he still on top of the guy? And it was really hard to tell.
I thought he was still on top. Right.
There was one angle
really,
his butt was on the ground.
It was really hard to tell. It was signaled first down on the field.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, and that's the thing. They haven't outlined with replay assist that it has to be clear and obvious for them to fix it. They can fix whatever they want. There's really, I haven't seen it. No, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. If someone finds this, please give it to me. I'd love to see it. I want to know what the criteria is for replay assist versus instant replay. Because it sounds like replay assist can change anything they want without the same burden of proof that instant.
I don't know, but I'll tell you what.
Replay would have to.
The fans in the stand were going nuts because you went 3 plays in a row where the crew on the field signals first down.
And they said, nope. Yeah.
And took all 3 of them back.
And moved the chains and then moved them back. And moved the change and then moved them back. And moved the chains and then flipped them around. Yeah, that was the thing. And that was frustrating because, yeah. And could that have just been a knee-jerk reaction of being frustrated at the previous 2 plays that they went for it there? Yes, it was. But I was frustrated and I wanted them to go for it there, which probably was the wrong call. It probably really was. But, and that gave the Bengals 3 points and they ended up winning by 2. So that was just one of those things. So it just, yeah, it was just okay. I'm sorry. I know I've been ranting a lot and you've had to listen to me a lot. But
what else is new?
But that I'm fully expecting the Steelers to come out with the exact same game plan offensively that they had against the Bengals, because the way Coach Tomlin talked, it sounded like, oh, they just didn't execute it well enough. You're not a very good running team. You can't just completely rely on running the football. And here's what makes it even more stupid. You ready? I mean, it was a stupid game plan. Unless you were trying to set something up for the playoffs. I know I should have had it ready to say it. Unless you're trying to set something up, which I don't know why you would, when being the 5 versus the 6 was such a stark difference, unless the Steelers really wanted the Ravens, I don't know, then there was no reason to run that game plan. Because why? Because you threw for over 400 yards against them already.
Yep.
And you're going to have a philosophy of, we need to go run the ball. We're going to run the ball to keep the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands. They had a 16-minute and 40-second advantage in time of possession going into the fourth quarter. If your job was say we're going to run it to keep it away from them, you did the exact opposite.
That's right.
You did the exact opposite. So if they come out with the same game plan, with stuff to the Ravens. Even if they win, I'm still going to be very frustrated with it. Trust me. What's more important than anything is whether they win. I don't know how they could win with it, though. That's the problem.
Let me start my shift to things for the game on Saturday. Oh, I hate games on Saturday. Let me just say this. I will say I'm glad it's the game at 8 o'clock. If it would have been the game earlier, there's a chance Kyle would have been writing my article because I got some other things I want to do on Saturday, and I was not going to let the Steelers game prioritize that.
You lost last Saturday going to the Steelers game.
That's right.
So.
That's right. So, but since it's going to be at 8 o'clock, I can handle it. So, it's just my confidence in this current Steelers team right now, coming off a 4-game losing streak, I don't think can get much lower. Like my percentage chance of the Steelers winning this game is under 10.
No. See, I'm not that bad, but we'll get
I am. I am that bad. Why? Because I do not expect the philosophy to change. I expect the Steelers to get down early, try to hold it close, and the Ravens are just going to slowly pull away.
Okay, here's one here. And then I've got to get to the super chat. I'm sorry. But Knight Rider said, and why would you give Burrow the ball first and then he drives right down the field? Why? The Steelers should never take the ball first. They haven't scored an opening touchdown all season. If you take the ball first, it's a waste. Because if you take the ball first to think maybe you get up, you're not. That's what they did against Washington, and it was an utter failure.
Right,
then you're giving the other team a chance to score at the end of the first half and get the ball to start the second half, back-to-back scores without you having a possession.
Right. But let me say this, though. What have the Steelers done the last several times they've deferred and gotten the ball to start the second half? What does their second half possessions turn into?
3 and out.
3 and out, like they did the other night. So it was basically what the Steelers did was give the ball to Cincinnati to start both halves. Basically is what they're doing.
But
okay? And what I put out there,
they're giving it to them to start both halves.
and what I put this one out there to you. So if you take the two teams and do their first possessions of the half this past weekend, okay, the score was Cincinnati 10, the Steelers 6 plays.
Yeah.
Cincinnati had more points than the Steelers had plays.
Yeah. Yep.
Must be better.
Yes. So I will say this, like the last time the Steelers scored on their first possession after halftime, now they didn't start with it in the second half, was they did get a field goal to match Kansas City's field goal on Christmas Day. They did that. But yeah, it's been not good with any of those. But the reason
this rolls us, we're talking about the kind of stuff that is good right now.
Yeah. Todd Williams, I've held this for a long time. I didn't forget about it, but I wanted to make sure we did. He says, and it was so good he asked it twice. Okay. So I'll only read the first time. $4.99 of the tip jar. Thank you so much, Todd. Is it me, or has our kickoff coverage been awful? It's not you.
Lately.
The kickoff coverage is for the Steelers. That's their weak part of special teams. Now, I would like to think that Chris Boswell could kick the ball into or through the end zone. But someone brought up that on the last one that he kicked off, that it went to the end line, but they ran it out anyway. If I was the other team, I would run it out against the Steelers because they don't cover it well.
The last one,
he was kicking into the wind.
The last one, the guy, one foot was fully in the end zone, his body fully in the end zone, but I'm not sure his other foot was back in the end zone. So I think it was one of those where he is like, I'm not exactly sure I'm at on the field. I'm not going to hesitate. I'm just going to get the ball and go.
Well,
so
and here's the other thing. I think it was he decided he was going to return it, and therefore he didn't care where his feet was. Yeah. If he was considering not returning it, he would have made sure his feet was in the end zone when he caught it. So that's my opinion. But no, their coverage has not been good on kickoffs. So Jeff Hartman talked about it on Winners and Losers. He's like, well, you don't want to give Joe Burrow the ball at the 30? Well, okay. Well,
We'll
in
give it
an
to him
attempt
at the
not give it to
42.
30, you're giving it to him at between the 40 and 45.
Yeah, exactly. It's like no sense.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. I know. And so I know, but here you said you give the Steelers a 10% chance of everything. I'm not that low. Okay. Now, I'm telling you right now, I'm not expecting the Steelers to win, but it's not that they can't. The one thing that I have to remember is, did the Steelers completely do nothing to turn things around on Saturday night? The answer that's not an accurate statement. They looked like a much better team defensively. It was bend but don't break. But especially in the red zone, my goodness, if you can do that with Baltimore and keep them from scoring on almost every possession, you're going to give yourself a chance. That's it. But if you're only giving yourself a chance because your offense is sitting around doing nothing other than making sure you don't turn it over until it gets so late in the game, you have to then take a shot. That's what they did. And how many times did we see that with the Steelers with Kenny Pickett? Play it safe, don't turn it over. Play it safe, don't turn it over. Play it safe, don't turn it over. Fourth quarter, all right, go get them. And they did. And I'm like, then why don't you just go get them the whole freaking game? Or are you trying to get the other team to have a lead and wait for them to go prevent, and then you can actually do something against them? But the only way you're going to get that is when you're basically out of time. So, yeah.
I don't know. I'm tired of trying to figure it out, honestly, because it's not making sense, and we have spent so much time over the past several years trying to make it make sense, and it continues to not make sense. So I am really at a point where I'm just tired of trying to make it.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because I'm going to go ahead and preview it. Do you want to know what myself and Greg Benevent will be doing for Pittsburgh Standard Time Thursday morning on our audio only? This is only on audio, so for those of you that only watch on YouTube, you're gonna have to go look for it. If so, you've been that's been a blast of a show. Greg is something else, and that's I'm really happy with that show, much more than whatever because that used to be where Stat Geek was. But what we're going to talk about, my goodness, I think I could even tell you exactly word for word what we're going to talk about. But what Greg and I are going to talk about is we're going to say, what would a Steelers wild card win look like? So in other words, what would have to happen for the Steelers to win this game? Right now, you're like, I don't really have much faith. So because we're out of time, so from here, it's going to be where Greg and I pick up, and we're going to talk about, okay, well, if this happens, if the Steelers can do this and this, and Baltimore this, we'll look at various things that could lead to a Steelers victory. It's not beyond hope, but I will tell you this, exactly what when our father asked me what I think about it, when I talked to him this evening, I said, can the Steelers find a way to win this game? Sure they can. Am I banking on that? I am not. I'm not. I mean, it's not that it's not possible, but there are ways it can happen, and that's what Greg and I are going to talk about. So, anything else you want to say about this before we get to your score prediction?
Let's go to scores.
You're ready for scores?
Yes,
okay.
I'm ready.
I already have my score for Thursday night picked. It's written down. I don't care what anyone else is going to do. I've already made my decision. So I know what I'm going with. I might even see it from other people. Now, for those of you that might be here tonight for the first time, don't put your score in there yet. After I bring it up and say it, and you'll see it in the live chat, wherever you're watching, you type your score in. If you don't put a name, we assume it's Steelers, but you say what the scores. We'll bring up all of them and read them. But first, Rich gives us what he thinks is going to happen in his score.
All right. Well, first of all,
but first I got to say this. So you're telling me there's a chance, Dave? Oh, there's always a chance, but we got to see what it would take. All right.
Now, first of all, I'm going to preface my score with saying we're still not sure exactly what the weather's going to be in Baltimore come Saturday.
Yeah.
And anybody,
There's a chance
I saw
for a
some
significant storm.
I saw some folks out there talking, oh, there's a chance of a little bit of snow, but it'll be done by Saturday morning. There is, but there's not. There's more going on potentially weather-wise than what we say. Now,
And
I will preface this like some of the guys I follow. This is not a forecast.
I've got
It's not a
I've got to
forecast.
first. People don't understand. Big Bro Scho is like a Jim Cantorian training. He's into weather and he does he loves weather. So if you want to know stuff going on with weather, you ask Big Bro Scho. So tell us about what's going on, Rich.
There is still probably a 30% chance or better that Baltimore could be seeing serious snow Friday night
For
in the
Baltimore.
midday in Baltimore.
Yeah. Meaning serious for Baltimore, not serious for Buffalo.
Well, serious for Baltimore is if this thing falls the right way, you're talking a 10-inch snow down there, which is
That's
pretty
huge
significant.
for Baltimore.
Okay,
They
but
haven't had that in years.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's the greatest chance of weather is for that. Nope, greatest chance of weather is probably for a 2 to 3 inch snow for Baltimore. But it could, which is why you got to keep an eye on the weather the next couple of days. Now. That's nice. Nice.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
for Tim.
Yes. Thank you from the good
he said-
pastor.
For those of you that are listening, because what Tim Pratt II has up there, got to say it for audio for him. He says, Cantori is a junior when Big Bro Scho enters the room. So just had to say that. Yeah.
Look, the Tim and AJ and Jim and the guys I fish with, they all give me a hard time because I'm the guy that is like all over the weather.
Weather. Yes.
Yep. All over the weather. So, that being said,
It could just be a couple
here
inches.
is my score.
Okay.
AFC North football, possible winter weather going on. My score is going to be Ravens 6 field goals. Steelers 4 field goals. 18-12 Ravens.
18-12 Ravens. 18-12 Ravens. Hey, you can go ahead. I know they've been waiting to enter their scores in. There it is. You can enter in your scores for that. So you're thinking a lot of field goals. It's going to be some snow during the day. We just don't know how much. It could just be a little bit. But my goodness, 2 inches of snow in Baltimore and that city shut down. It's just, it's not a snow city. So, and I can say that because I'm close to it. So here we go. Captain Underpants, who you didn't happen to catch him at the game. Brian did. Bag did.
That's, what, I didn't get to say this. I'm going to say it now. The reason the Steelers lost that game is 100% on Brian Anthony Davis. Okay? I was in the stadium. Brian Anthony Davis was in the stadium. The Steelers lost. The last time I was in the stadium and the Steelers lost was the last game I went to before COVID, and Brian Anthony Davis was also in the stadium.
Spooning with me. Yes. So the combination of Big Bro Scho and Brian Anthony, not good.
Not
He
good.
ruined your win streak, Kyle's win streak,
yep.
Warren's win streak.
All of them. And it's all Brian's fault.
All of it. But Captain Underpants, he was there as well. I know he got to meet up with Bad. He said 27-26 Steelers because the Ravens go for 2 and miss.
Nice.
That's a Wang Harbs move right there, baby. After 4, it says 15-24 Baltimore. Wes gives if Baltimore wins, it's 45-3. If the Steelers win, it's 21-17. But he thinks it's going to be the first one. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's going to be 45-3. I don't think it's that bad. I really don't. I don't think this defense gives up. The defense isn't going to give up that amount of points unless they're getting massive amount of possessions, because the Steelers are either A, constantly turning the ball over, which they would curl up in a shell before they did that, or B, scoring themselves, and it's a high possession game. I just don't see it being a high possession game the way the Steelers do stuff. But I get it. I get what you're saying. I just don't. Yeah. Rob Fitoff says 31-10 Ravens. See, that's a little bit more where I could see it. Okay. Brian Brown says 26-24 for Steelers. That would be goodbye Baltimore. Thomas Riley, you know what? You've been so solid all season, and I love this even better. The ties haven't been working for 4 weeks. Time to change it up. He says Ravens 34, Steelers 13. Steel Dog 88 says 1918 Steelers. Mark Tobin says Steelers 42-10. Man, the Steelers going down there. I mean, that would be the Steelers come in with a completely different offensive philosophy and say, we're just going to go at you and we're going to take the ball away on defense and we're just going to let this get out of hand. That's one that would be low percentage, but boy, wouldn't that be wonderful? But we don't have much hope for that right now based on the data, recent data. We'll say that. Gavin Anthony says 24-17 Ravens. Cherry Band has Steelers 27-24 because Boz is going to hit a game-winning kick. TD, Tom Dessenberger, says 20-17 Steelers. Outside Steelers fan says Ravens 20-13 because Wilson makes another crucial mistake late. I guess that would probably be his last mistake for the Steelers if that happens. Kathy Ford says 27-20. That would be Steelers, unless she tells me later that she hit enter before she did that. I'm trying to find more. Knight Rider, here we go. He has 30-17 Ravens. Ruben Stone has 19-16. Let's go. That would be Steelers. Tiana Jones or Tiana, Ravens 31-10. The returner says 27-17 Ravens. Mr. Woodside says 27-19 Ravens. No One You Know says 38-18 the Birds. Tim Pratt says 16-13. That would be Steelers. Felicia. Hey, Felicia.
Hey, Felicia.
She's got 15-17 Steelers. It's funny. Wes says he doesn't believe it either, but that's his doom and gloom right now. Yeah, he says he thinks a more realistic score would be 31-13. Mike G says 27-13 Ravens. So that's what we got. That's the last one that I have. Am I right?
I think so.
Notice there's been times where every single pick has been Steelers. This was not the case. This was probably, would you say, mostly Ravens, maybe 60-40?
Yeah, probably.
Close to 50-50. And hey, You know what? For those of you that are picking the Steelers because you have hope that they can do it, I don't blame you one bit. For those of you that are picking the Ravens because you're just like, I'm sorry, the Steelers haven't given me hope that they're going to actually go in and get the job done, I get that too. That's what's great about being fans. You can go into it. I would much rather pick the Steelers to lose and be wrong than anything else. This is going to be a tough one. It's going to be interesting. Hey, and we're going to be here for it. You're going to see a very similar lineup of podcasts as what you saw last week because it's the same kickoff time at 8:00 Saturday. Chances are our Saturday lineup will be the same. Like last minute thoughts, it went at, did it go at 11 or at noon? I can't even remember when I ran it because we still had Black and Bold and State of the Steelers in the morning on Saturday. So we got it all in there. We'll continue to bring the podcasts. We'll continue to bring stuff at SteelCurtainNetwork.com. I'm looking forward this week for some worthless 2 cents. I really am.
I'm not sure you're going to want to see what I've got, what my thoughts are this week, but they'll be there.
Yeah. So lots of stuff going on there. You know what? Regardless, we're going to be here next Tuesday night. The question is, are we going to be talking about heading into the dreadfully long off season? Or are we going to be talking about, hey, they play for another week? All right, here we got one more. Demetrios has 27-16 Ratbirds. Pains him, like so many other people were saying here with their other comments, that it says it pains them to pick against the Steelers, but that's what the Steelers, that's the confidence they've instilled right now. That's just how it is. So we'll see. Any given Saturday night, I guess, is what we should say more than anything. So with all that, Rich, I'm going to give it to you to give us your closing thoughts and send us out of here.
All right. Closing thoughts. Oh, it's sad to think that if the Steelers can't right the ship, that this will be the end of the season.
Yep.
That's the sad part.
Yes.
Okay.
I just don't want it to be over.
I know. We never want it to be over, but
In season is so much better than off season.
yep. Hey, look, Afton, if you're still listening out there, you were correct when I said I got some other things to do on my Saturday. There's possibly some ice fishing that will be happening. That actually is going to be back-to-back days because I think Mr. Tim Pratt, who was in the live chat earlier, he and I think, are planning on going out Friday. Ooh. And then may turn around and go out again on Saturday. But that gives me time to go out, enjoy my day, come home, get comfortable, get warmed up, get ready for, what do you want to call it? Is it playoff football? Is it AFC North football? Is it, it's Steelers Ravens. And maybe that's the one little thing I can hang my hat on is the fact that it's Steelers Ravens, and when the Steelers and the Ravens play, you just never sure what's going to happen.
We're not urinating on the fire, man.
That's right. So, I'll be on my couch again, ready to either scream my full head off cheering for the Steelers or screaming at my TV hoping there are no projectiles around for me to throw at it. It's going to be one of those two. I'm hoping for the former, but I'm worried it could be the latter. But one way or the other, doesn't matter. It's still Steeler football. Can't wait.
You gotta just chill out, man.
Can't wait.